Hello, ladies and gentlemen. And I know we've been on a bit of a break, but we are back. As you guys can tell, a little bit of a break. Chris went to Calgary, and I just decided to play Overwatch instead of talking about it for a little bit. So, but thank you guys so much for waiting, and we are now back in action because, as you guys may have heard, if you've been living under a rock these past couple hours, Toronto Defiant have let go basically everybody. So to put it shortly, if you looked at the official Overwatch League website, which we will leave the link in the description below, they had officially let go of everybody. So they didn't technically either re-sign or extend anybody's contract on the team. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't be able to sign these players back, but they have officially given goodbye posts to everybody on the roster, I believe, except for Logix. As of the time we are recording this episode, so I mean, who knows, halfway through I might get a notification on my phone and Logix has been officially let go too. But as of this very moment, he is currently the only person left on the roster. So we are here to give our thoughts about it. As always, I am your host, Spencer. With me is Chris. Chris, how's it going?
Not bad. It's snowing out here in Calgary. It snowed a couple weeks ago. It's really cold. It's cold. I need to go back to Toronto.
It's insane that it's already snowing out there. It's a little cold out here, but it's not too bad.
Hey, the real only reason why I like winter is to go skiing, and there's no mountains in Ontario, so
yeah, I mean, fair enough. I like building snow forts and having snowball fights, but you know, that's just me.
You're also 25.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, worth it. But yeah, let's just jump right into the thing. So Chris, I guess what are your initial thoughts on sort of the entire roster being let go, but I mean more so everybody seemingly being let go outside of Logix?
Yeah, for the most part, it makes sense. I think there are some like question marks around certain individuals, specifically, obviously Logix, Kariv, maybe Agilities, and maybe Beast, but I think for the most part it makes sense. Cruz, I don't think he was that great of a support, although he filled kind of a role for the time being. Zick, same thing. No hurt to him, but just wasn't kind of up to that standard. Well, Surefour checked out. We knew he checked out in the season. Frontline like Nevix, like he just wasn't who he thought he was. I like Numlocked once again. A guy came in great just to fill part of the season through, but really wasn't kind of that permanent spot that we were looking for. So it kind of makes sense. Now the real question is Agilities, Kariv, maybe Beast. Why did they let those guys go?
Yeah, so it's interesting, obviously, to just sort of give my opinions on some of the people that you brought up. Like, I think Cruz, a lot of people in the community sort of wanted him to come back, and I don't think he was bad by any stretch of the imagination. And you're right, he did fill a role, which was the leadership. I thought that his Mercy at the end of the year looked really good. I thought that his Lucio was okay. It was it wasn't bad. It wasn't rough. But I will say, his Baptiste really hurt him. So I could see that being sort of an area of weakness and maybe an area we wanted to improve around. His Brigida had its moments, but overall I wasn't, overly impressed. Yeah, Numlocked, obviously I think, did what he was supposed to do. He filled that leadership role. And it's tough for Numlocked and as well as Zick. I did want Zick to get a little bit more of a look because both of them had to play on like some pretty intense ping. Sorry, I was just going to say, sorry. I had some notifications coming there. I just turned those off. Don't worry about it. But yeah, they're playing on some pretty intense. Yeah, they're exactly ping. They're playing on some pretty intense ping. So it's a little bit unfair to, I think, criticize their performances entirely because who knows what they would have been like if they were on LAN and in person. I think that you could have seen better performances out of both of those. Nevix, obviously, I was really excited when the year started. I think he had flashes of brilliance, right? He had flashes of brilliance. And in fact, his final game of the season was probably one of, if not his best game of the season. But overall, I think was a little bit disappointing throughout the year. And Surefour, I think that, I don't know what happened behind the scenes with him, but obviously it wasn't ideal for, I think, either party involved, Toronto Defiant as well as himself. So I'm glad that hopefully he can figure it out. And whether it be streaming or a new team or whoever, I hope that he figures that out. The big question marks are... Sorry?
It's not to say that any of those guys were bad, right?
Yeah.
It's just that, like, if they're like decent and we're still, just losing lots of our games, ending up in, bottom 5, the pot has to be shaked. We need new people.
Yeah, like I think running it back would not have been the right answer for this team, right? Like we were a bottom 5 team, the bottom 3 team in NA, bottom 4 or 5 team in NA. So changes definitely had to be made. I think what really surprised me was if you had, and we had the pre-show with Leon Master, the preview show with Leon Master, and we spoke about some of the people we thought would come back. And I was sort of the position that from a starting roster perspective, you would see Kariv and Logix back, and then you might see Agilities and Beast back, but maybe more in like a substitution role. Like maybe you keep Beast on the bench or as a two-way player to sort of have him develop, because you know that person, I think Beast is good. The coaching staff really believed in Beast that he was good. And although one of his weaknesses was sort of his leadership capabilities, I think mechanically he was always there. So I did actually expect us to sort of have him and try to develop that part of his game, because especially in the Reinhardt, we saw like his mechanics were like really impressive at points throughout this year, and he put on some really good performances. So I was surprised for us to let him go in the manner that we did. And I thought that Agilities would kind of come in there again to fill that Genji role, to fill that Doomfist role, and again be Canadian on the bench, good marketing, has a relationship with Kariv. But I think letting Kariv go is what really surprises me. Because personally, I thought he was one of our best players all year long, very consistently. Not only was he a good player, but he also had a great relationship with the fan base. And as you know, you're trying to build a fan base. You got to keep some players consistent. And I thought for sure we would see him back. So him getting a goodbye post on Twitter was probably the most surprising. Because I actually thought if you were to keep one person, it would be Kariv.
Yeah, well, I think there's kind of conversations for each one of those individuals. In terms of Beast, I feel like lots of this does come down to tightening their waist belts. When it comes to Beast, like I feel like he is a player that has potential to be really good. I think that he just needs like a year or two of development. I just don't think that maybe Toronto Defiant can really like afford to keep him on just for that development. They probably just want him to go back to contenders for a year or two, really kind of develop just a little bit more, and maybe hope of hopefully he'll get picked up by a team.
He will,
if not,
for sure.
Toronto Defiant. Yeah, Toronto Defiant again. I just think once again, they don't have the money to really kind of keep him on in a development kind of role. You can comment on that if you want.
Well, I was gonna say, I was wondering what the two-way contracts were like. So they recently changed this, especially in the Call of Duty League. I wasn't too sure about the Overwatch League. I kind of forget. But I believe that you can have a two-way player on your roster playing contenders. Can you not, without an academy team? If you can't, I should have looked that up. I literally that thought just came in my head, because he was a perfect player, I think, to sign to a two-way role, assuming he could still get play times in contenders. And if that's not the case, that should be something that should change. Because in Call of Duty, you can do it, right? You can have a player on your bench playing contenders and just call them up. Because he, in my opinion, is the perfect person who I would love to see on a contenders team with like LA up beside him, you know what I mean? On a two-way contract where you can give him reps. Because he was a year off last year. He came into this year and played well, struggled at moments, but then for the rest of the year was also on the bench. So I really want to see this kid get some reps in, because I think he can be good. So I think no doubt he ends up on a tier 2 team. If you're a tier 2 team and you don't pick up Beast, I think you're out of your mind. He's going to be one of the best.
You pick him up, hopefully in a year or two he gets back on to tier 1.
Yeah, he might even get picked up by a tier 1 team. Like Leon Masters, theorized that you might see like Houston Outlaws or somebody go after him and try to sign him. And I could see that. If you're a team with a veteran off tank, I even look at the LA Gladiators. They got Space. Like I think Space and Beast could be pretty good. Now they might go for somebody like Super, and I mean obviously he's sort of the big main tank on the market. But if you strike out on the Super sweepstakes, do you not then try to go for somebody like Beast? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think that could be interesting.
Yeah, that could be. Look at Agilities, I think we disagree a little bit more on. I think that he fills a couple specific niches, and I think he was really good for a period of time, and for the rest of the season, he wasn't really quite filling those shoes. So I think that in terms of Toronto Defiant strategy, I feel like the strategy is have a little bit smaller of a roster this year and keep it more towards generalists that can be used in different situations. So to me, it kind of makes sense why they got rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fully disagree. I think that it's important. Again, I think Agilities was sort of one of those players you want on the bench, because he does fill a role that's like pretty hard to fill. His Genji's elite. His Doomfist is really good. We didn't get to see his Pharah, but I know it's really good. His Hog's good, to be fair. So I think he's gonna be one of those players who you just need to know what he is. He's not gonna be your Mei player, right? Like he's not gonna come in there and play your Hanzo. I think he fills the role of Genji, Doomfist. And to be frank, like Brand, like sell sponsorships, right? Put him in content pieces. He streams. His stream is really good. He interacts a lot with chat. Like he's a marketable individual, and he's Canadian. So I'd have liked to have seen him on the bench. Him, he also had a really good relationship with Kariv, and I assumed Kariv was staying, but clearly that also wasn't the case. So I would have kept him because, like, let's say it is a Genji meta next year, and even if you go out for a generalist DPS, like projectile DPS player, like a Nero, who I'm a big fan of, but it's a bit of a pipe dream. Like, I don't know who else you could get because you might not get Nero. But there's not a lot of people out there with an elite Genji. EQO comes to mind. So, I mean, if you're like, hey, we don't need Agilities because we're going to sign EQO, maybe.
Here's the thing when it comes back to that kind of generalist, like, you got to realize that, Season 4 is coming with the release of Overwatch 2. Like, it's going to be a mess to know what's actually going to be out there and what's going to be meta. So I think that it's the safer option to, get rid of him, pick up somebody that has, a little more player flexibility than really being able to stick those players that, maybe like probably won't be relevant, but maybe irrelevant next year.
No, I totally don't disagree with that. You're suggesting, obviously, if you have to pick one, you go with the generalist. But my point is you can pick two. Is that you can have both. And obviously the business comes into this, the contract salary comes into this, how much money they're making comes into this. But from a team building perspective, I would have liked to have seen like Agilities alongside a Nero, for instance. Because I think that would have given you the best opportunity to win. And you're right, Overwatch 2 we're going to do a whole episode on Overwatch 2 because that changes so much, right? Like, I think that is the reason I brought that up is because I think that's the reason why we're seeing so many teams like go of so many players. There's so much uncertainty with Overwatch 2, and with the unlikeliness of homestands going into next year, I think some teams are sort of trying to like crack down a little bit on their budget. I think that even though Logix has technically, his contract's expired, I do expect the team to try to re-sign him under maybe a little bit more of a team-friendly deal. I think it's possible you see that with other players, which I'll get to in a moment. But I think that because nobody knows what Overwatch 2 is going to bring in terms of, will it be 1-3-2, right? Which we saw experimented. Will it be open queue? Will it be 2-3-2? Will it, like, who knows, right? There's so many different changes that can come. It could be 1-2-2. Like, we don't know, right? Like, I think Jane was one who tweeted, like, that, like, 5v5 is, like, a possibility in his opinion, right? Like, no leaks, and I might be misquoting him. I'm sorry if I am. But, like, people are the changes that Overwatch 2 can bring to the series, I think some people are underestimating them. I don't know if it's just going to be here's a new mode, here's a new engine, here's some new heroes, let's go. It could very well be the mode going forward is one tank, 3 DPS, 2 supports, right? So I can understand why teams are a little bit more hesitant to go out there and spend big money on a roster that they don't know is going to be valuable. Like, for example, Toronto Defiant this year, right? Spent a lot of money on a roster that was pretty good in like a non-hero pool environment, and then hero pools came out, and it kind of screwed us. So I think we'll see on that. My last point before we move on, and before you get your final point in there is, even though we've said goodbye tweets to some of these players, do not rule out the possibility that they might get re-signed. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen this happen. Everybody go back to last offseason when Philadelphia Fusion gave out that big, thank you, EQO, and Philly fans were up in arms, and everybody was speculating all year long, where's EQO going? Where's EQO going? And then sure enough, come roster announcement time, the whole thing played. At the very end, they scrambled the TV, and EQO came back on, and welcome back, EQO. So just because they've gotten a goodbye post, specifically I think the players that we mentioned, Kariv, maybe Agilities, maybe Beast, don't completely rule out the possibility that Toronto might not go back out there later on and try to re-sign them again.
Yeah, they may just be, once again, like just cutting costs for now, don't want to pay anybody, and then, coming back and trying to pick them up. Obviously, that with that comes risk. Somebody else could pick them up. They could not get them in the end. So you are taking a risk by, getting rid of somebody just to not pay them for, the off season. But hey, you know what? The off season is pretty long. It's starting in like March or April now.
The rumors is April. No, nothing's confirmed. The rumor is April.
That's half a year.
6 months.
I don't know how we're gonna make content until then, but
it's gonna be Overwatch compilations. It's gonna be our ranked. It's just gonna be me tilting and ranked for 20 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. So yeah, that's a long time to be paying people who aren't really like bringing you in revenue, right?
They got to do
So
something. I don't think they. Sorry, we're off topic here, and man, April's so far. And if you're gonna wait till April, there better be some mid-season tournaments or fun goats tournaments or something like that with professional teams. That is an absurd amount of time. Obviously, I know what a surprise! Like it's for Overwatch 2, it's for the release of Overwatch 2. It has to be, but who knows?
yeah, and I'm sure we'll be distracted by Overwatch. We'll probably make videos in Overwatch 2.
Yeah, we absolutely
New Toronto map, like come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey, on that, what else do we want to say? Do you have any comments on Kariv Logix?
Yeah, so my last question was going to be, what are your thoughts on Logix seemingly be the only person to be resigned? I mean, again, nothing's confirmed. Just everybody else got a thank you post except for Logix. My only rationale right now is that's because we had, have a plan to bring him back.
And as I say this, I'm going to look back at the Toronto
I've been checking this. I'm looking at my phone. No one's been announced yet. I've been checking.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, look at in terms of Kariv, makes sense. Well, it actually doesn't make sense why he's leaving. Maybe he wanted to leave. I'm not quite sure. I think that the fact that Brady is leaving can play into it a little bit. Probably isn't a deciding factor, but plays into the thoughts a little bit. And maybe he just wants like a fresh start. Maybe he just didn't like the coaching staff, like management, or management didn't like him. I'm not quite sure. Logix, I feel like here's the thing. I feel like maybe there's like a mutual kind of like with Kariv. They're like, like we're not feeling too hot on you. I'm not feeling too hot on you.
No, Logix is they kept him.
No, for Kariv.
For Kariv, yeah.
For Logix, I know like one on the street is obviously he's a very fun-loving guy, very easygoing, just likes to hang out. Also a good Overwatch player. So I'm sure he was just like, yeah, like they're like, you're good, like want to stay, and he's like, yeah, sure, like I don't mind. Toronto Defiant, sure, yeah.
I'm sure that's how the negotiation process went down. Exactly, it was word for it. Yeah. Do you want to stay? Lodge is sitting there back having his Belgian beer. He's like, yeah, I guess I'll stay, man. Sure, why not?
It's Hugard.
Yes, Hugard. Yeah. Maybe a little bit more complicated than that, but
obviously it doesn't go like that. Obviously, it doesn't go like that. But I'm just giving a casual overview. I'm just saying there's probably like into the deciding factor of whether or not somebody stays. It isn't just skill, right? It's skill from the skill, marketability, but there's also like compatibility. I feel like maybe there wasn't a lot of compatibility between Kariv and management. I'm sure because Logix is more of an easygoing guy, there's a little more compatibility there, which may have played a part in the fact that he stayed.
I don't know if he's more easygoing than Kariv, man. Kariv is like so easygoing. Everything we've heard about Kariv is how easygoing he is. Like I don't know. Like I think the only reason I can see us letting Kariv go, there's two. One would be because he wanted a lot of money, and we just don't want to pay him. We're saying, hey, well, not this year, right? There's no homestands. We don't know what's going to happen with Overwatch 2. We have no idea. So, like, you're a fantastic Ana. Your Zenyatta is really good, but we're not going to pay you like $200,000, whatever his salary was. I'm sorry. Bye. Another thing is going to be his Baptiste wasn't great. So while he was an amazing Ana and his Zenyatta was really good, he wasn't the most flex support player in the world. His Moira was good, but not elite. His Baptiste definitely wasn't elite. There's a reason why Lilbo, I believe in his post, said they wanted to bring in somebody specific to play Baptiste and kind of Moira, which is also what we've been saying the entire year, was that his Baptiste wasn't that great. So it's possible they want to bring somebody more well-rounded in, who maybe their highs aren't as high as Kariv's, but they have like a broader hero pool. And I think that finally, the final point might be, this, in my opinion, screams that we're going to go after Crimzo. Like, if you're letting go Kariv and you want to keep Western speaking, is there another flex support player right now in the market other than Crimzo who even like remotely fits that, unless you're like going into someone contenders, right? Like, and like in my opinion, like for them to let this person go, I feel like we have to be going after Crimzo. And again, we have no information on that, but that makes like way too much fucking sense to me. Is that Crimson's available and you're sitting there going, hey, is Kariv maybe again at his high a bit better? Sure. Maybe, actually. I think Crimson's really good. I don't want to say that like it's a fact. But I do think that Crimson might have a little bit of a broader hero pool, as well as potentially be a little bit better, with the communication style. And also he has a Canadian flag beside his name, which we know Overactive Media loves. So those are sort of my theories as to why we let somebody like Kariv go. As unfortunate as it's been, because I absolutely love the kid. I think he's good, but
Yeah, you know what? I totally agree with that. It definitely makes sense. A little bit more than my opinions about why he let be let go. So I think one last thing I want to touch on. Out of all the other kind of people who are free agents right now, who are some of the individuals that you would like to see us kind of court?
yeah. So now that main tank's gone, it's Super is really the only one who I know. Super is the best main tank free agent available. Again, this is off the assumption, by the way, guys, that we're continually going like Western speaking players only. We might bring somebody else on to sort of talk about Korean contenders players and who they'd like to see come in, because a mixed roster is a possibility. We got like Meg, Yakpong, etc. But I don't know Korean contenders well enough to give my opinion. So like all this is based around Western speaking players. Just want to give a little caveat before. So for main tank, it's Super. I think he really is like the big fish to fry. Obviously, you got people like OGE, who's still like an interesting one. I did think we'd keep Beast, but I guess not. Other than that, I'm a little bit more unsure. Salieri, maybe. I don't know. I'd have to talk to some hardcore contenders people. The off tank, I think we spoke about it last time. Note and Poco, I think are really good options. Note, obviously being Canadian. Poco, obviously being a veteran in the sport and just, I think, really, really talented. As well as in like Eleva, but I still think Lolish is actually another main tank who we might go after. Lolish, by the way. I think Lolish is good. Nero for flex DPS player. I think it starts and ends with Nero. I think he fit this team so incredibly well. He's one of the best available players, period. Not just Western speaking players. I think he's one of the best available players, period. Hitscan Shockwave. I like Shockwave. I think Shockwave's really good. I think since we're keeping Logix, though, I don't know we'd spend money on a big hit scan. Dante actually fits Logix really well. I think their heroes complement each other really well. Dante was somebody we brought up previously in the Leon Master. I just didn't think Houston would let him go, but he is technically a free agent. Obviously, Logix can play the Widow, the McCree, the Ashe. Dante can play the Sombra, the Tracer, etc. And then for flex support, I think it's Crimzo. I think it's Crimzo. Like, that's my prediction. If we let Kariv go, I'm predicting Crimzo. Main support, I don't know at all, other than Moth. Moth is sort of who I would love to see. It's who I wanted to see beforehand. It's who I still think, if you're going to spend a lot of money in this offseason, I think Moth and Nero are the people you go after. And Super, obviously, but I don't think you'd get them. I think Houston will, but regardless, those are the people you go after, in my opinion. Because other than that, I don't know the main support position well enough. How about you?
Hey, yeah, lots of those I was going to bring up. I just will mention like a couple that are not Western speaking, just because I want to. I'd love to see a comeback story from Ivy. That would be cool.
Ivy and Yakpong cool. Return?
Yeah. Violet, obviously a Violet crazy showing. He's probably pretty expensive though. I think EQO has actually now gone.
Yeah, EQO is a good shot. I should have mentioned EQO. EQO, if we strike out on Nero, and Nero, let's say, goes to Houston and they build some super team, EQO, I think, is a really good player to mention and a really good player to fill Agilities' role.
Yeah. And also, I think Meko. Meko is somebody who could also make some waves. Like I said, these guys aren't necessarily English speaking, but they spent like 3 years in NA Owl, so maybe they know a little bit of English. I'm not quite sure.
I think EQO knows English. I think EQO is Western speaking. I think he is. I think he speaks really good English. I've never actually seen an interview with him, but I'm pretty sure he speaks fluent English. He's like, I don't want to speculate on his. I think he does. Ivy, I know his English wasn't good when he played for Toronto Defiant, so who knows how it is now. And yeah, Meko did spend the entire year on Houston, so he might know some English. They were a mixed roster, so who knows?
Yeah, like I said, Ivy is kind of on a mixed roster-ish too.
Yeah.
Part of it, so
they got funny Astro, and I mean Boombox is available. He's another person who maybe, but I still think Crimson's the way to go. No, EQO I think is Western speaking, and he'd be really good.
Yeah. So those are kind of my additions to what you've already said. I also echo, the other people like OGE and Note, Poco, obviously Moth, Super.
Yeah, dude. Imagine. I tweeted this up, but imagine it's super.
Don't let me think about that.
No, Super. Let's go Canadian. Super Note, Nero Agilities, Logix, Dante, Crimzo, Moth.
Oh,
and
that'd be tight.
Just for fun. That'd be nasty. That'd actually be
nasty.
Nasty.
I'm going to have to shell out some cash.
Yeah, they would. They'd have to shell out too much. It won't happen. Because I think Houston is actually, I think Super Moth go to Houston. Junk Bunk and Harsha there. and hydration and how much money they have and the ties and, you know, Cool Matt now being the GM and the ties to the U.S. like national team. I actually expect Super and Moth both to end up there, unfortunately. But until it's official, my fingers are going to be crossed, so we'll see.
Yeah, we will see. Anyway, I don't have anything else to cover. Do you, Spencer?
No, I'm good, man.
Hey,
So,
well, look, you guys, thanks for listening to this first episode in a while of CAOverwatch. If you guys liked what you heard, give us a like, give us a follow too, please. I use those to validate myself every single day.
Agreed. And again, the guys will be back again with more weekly content. Keep playing Overwatch, keep having fun, and as always, guys, enjoy.